This is how Jin Ping Mei is read Chapter 16, Embroidered Portrait Version. Simon King chooses an auspicious date, and Count Ying pursues the joyful celebration word version. Simon King seeks a fortune and marries a wife, and Count Ying pursues happiness with joy. 1. To marry or not. Li Ping'er's thoughts. The Lantern Festival is of great significance to Li Ping'er because it is also her birthday, so she prepared to banquets. While she was building a plank road openly to invite Simon's wives and concubines to drink wine and enjoy the lanterns, she secretly invited her lover Simon King to spend the night together in Chenkang. Li Ping'er now has no relatives and friends, and all her important treasures are stored under Wu Yunyang's bed. Her only goal is to marry into Simon's family. Therefore, Li Ping'er confessed to Simon King 6 times in this chapter. For the convenience of comparison, we list the original text of the embroidery book as follows. The first time was on the 15th day of the first lunar month, the Lantern Festival, Li Ping'er's birthday. The woman handed Simon King wine, kowtowed and said, "My humble husband has passed away, and I have no relatives. Today's glass of wine is only for the sake of the official, and as a master, I don't think I am ugly. I am willing to make a bed with an official and be a sister with all the ladies. I am willing to do it myself. I wonder what the official's heart is like." The second time is the same as above. The woman pointed out, there are 30 or 40 kilograms of agar wood, 200 kilograms of white wax, 2 jars of mercury, and 80 kilograms of pepper hidden in the tea box behind my bed. You can move them out tomorrow and replace them. I sold the money to help you build a house. If you don't mind that I'm ugly, you can at least say to your aunt when you get home, "I would like to be a sister with you." And you can ask me which number you want me to be. My dear, I won't let you go. You. The third time, in early March, was planned to burn the spirit of Huizixu. Li Ping'er had invited Simon King in advance to discuss with him how to burn the spirit of Huizixu. The house can be sold, but no, you can bring someone here, guard. You should have married this slave earlier. No matter which slave you choose, I will be willing to help you make your bed and fold the quilt. As he spoke, tears fell like rain. The fourth time is the same as above. Li Ping'er said, "Since you sincerely want to marry a slave, you have already built the slave house. If you marry a slave and live in your house for a day, you will be willing to die. This will save the slave from living here like a year. If you don't, I will burn the spirit and move to Wan Yang's place for 2 days. When you build a new house, it won't be too late to move." On the 15th day of the 5th lunar month, the burning of souls was completed. The hall was brightly lit, and a banquet table was prepared, with a single high chair on it for Simon King to sit on. The maid held the pot, and Li Ping'er poured a full cup and handed it over, kowtowed 4 times, and said, "Today the spirit has been burned, and the officials will not abandon it. I will give you a handkerchief to fulfill Yufei's wish." The 6th time is the same as above. Li Ping'er hugged Simon King in his arms and shouted, "My brother, since you really want to marry me, you should do it as soon as possible. It is inconvenient for you to come and go, so don't leave me waiting here day and night." There is no doubt that we can see the progression of levels in these 6 confession paragraphs. The first 2 times, which were Li Ping'er's birthdays, she officially proposed to marry Simon King and handed over almost the last profit in her hand. Some of the remaining goods were sold into money to build a house. Obviously, Simon King will not lack the money to build a house, and Li Ping'er is just expressing his loyalty by naked gift. By mid-March, Simon King had been happily building a garden for 2 months, but Li Ping'er was absolutely in a hurry and living like a year. By discussing the matter of burning souls, Li Ping'er once again confessed that this time she even gave up the last bottom line, the house she currently lives in on Lion Street, and was willing to wait for Simon King to make the bed and fold the quilt, but she asked for a free room in Simon's house. What is the partial house in the ranking? Even she can put aside the partial house for the time being, and would rather live in Pan Jinlian's room temporarily than wait any longer. This is so impatient and unbearable. After another 2 months, Li Ping'er finally finished burning her soul and completely ended her relationship with the Hua family. At this time, she seemed to regard herself as a concubine alone. Let Simon King sit up and kowtowed for times. The same goes for Pan Jinlian, who is about to get married in Chapter 8. She has exhausted all her thoughts and has nothing to think about except waiting for the sedan chair promised by Simon King to arrive. In general, Li Ping'er is confessing her hate to marry emotion, right? Yes, but it's not just that. When we read the next chapter, Zhang Zhuxian told Li Ping'er that Simon King had suffered a disaster. At this time, a word made the woman speechless. Moreover, many things were left at his house. After thinking for a long time, she stumbled secretly. What is Li Ping'er thinking about? Is she thinking about what if she hadn't deposited her belongings at that time? Or what if she had married into Simon's family when she was so angry with Hua Zixu? Hua Zixu also stumbled. Now it's her turn, and she deeply regrets it all because of those boxes of huge treasures. Obviously, behind Li Ping'er's hate to marry, there is her deep uneasiness and fear. It was the impulse to store property at that time that created the forced and submissive behavior today. 2. To marry or not. Wu Yunyang's view. Li Ping'er wanted to get married, and Simon King also wanted to get married, but why was the wedding delayed? The reason is that the bride's wedding room has not been decorated yet. This so-called wedding room is related to the garden mentioned above. After Simon King bought the Huajia house, he planned to open up the garden partition wall, transform it into a large garden, and renovate the Huajia house as Li Ping'er's wedding room. Because the house was not completed yet, the wedding date was delayed. Li Ping'er even proposed the idea of marrying into Simon's family instead of trying to squeeze in with Pan Jinlian first. On the one hand, this is because Li Ping'er hates to marry, and on the other hand, it is also because Li Ping'er admires Pan Jinlian and Meng Yulu. Tomorrow, I will build the slave's house with his 5 mothers. He was a good man who couldn't bear to part with him. He and the 3 ladies of the Meng family behind him met and became intimate with each other. The 2 were born and dressed not like 2 sisters, but just as if they were born from the same mother, which is also the sympathy of the Garden Beauty Gang. Of course, Simon King had to discuss this with Pan Jinlian, because Pan Jinlian knew the relationship between them well. And now Li Ping'er was also very aware of current affairs, and took the initiative to curry favor with her. Now the question is, does Pan Jinlian agree to Li Ping'er's proposal? On the surface she agreed, but she kicked the ball to Wu Yunyang. What did she think? I'm sure Pan Jinlian minded Li Ping'er marrying in, but she didn't dare to object face to face. From her point of view, if she had not married Li Ping'er, there would be no essential difference between Li Ping'er next door or Li Ping'er on Lion Street and Sister Li Gui in the brothel. But if Li Ping'er married in, it would not necessarily be the case. The enemy is now a friend. Therefore, Pan Jinlian cleverly diverted the trouble away. After all, if Wu Yunyang agreed, why would she oppose it alone? Wu Yunyang raised her objection neatly. It's not good for you to marry him. We have always thought that Wu Yunyang is a very slow-tongued person, but now seeing her list out 3 reasons so easily and so clearly, I maliciously guessed that she has been waiting for this day since she was connected to the wall. She knew that Simon King would have to talk to her sooner or later. Her 3 reasons are as follows. The first thing is that he was dissatisfied with his filial piety. The second thing is that you had a relationship with him as a man. The third thing is that you joined hands with his wife, bought his house, and collected many of the things he kept. His home Hua Die in the Fang clan is a cunning and scoundrel person. If he makes some remarks for a while, it will cause lice to scratch his head. What I said is a good thing. Zhao Jin and Sun Li. It's up to you whether you want to or not. Let's analyze it in detail. The first reason, dissatisfaction with filial piety, is basically nonsense. Both Meng Yulu and Pan Jinlian were not satisfied with filial piety. The second reason, to have a relationship with his manly man, is also nonsense. The so-called friendship here would be brothers like Earl Ying who would mind. But what objections could they have? You must know that when Li Ping'er died later, Earl Ying kept saying what a kind and righteous sister-in-law, and he was filled with regret. The third reason is that after buying a house and collecting things, the rogue has a big reputation. It's not a big deal to buy a house. After all, Simon King's real money was bought and sold fairly at the government's official guide price. What about collecting the things? This was her proactive idea. If she was unaware of the situation at the time, what evidence or ability does Li Ping'er have to go back now? When Li Ping'er gets married, these things have to be returned. But what if she never gets married? Snort. As long as Li Ping'er doesn't come in, she seems to be able to devour this wealth without any shame or limit, as if it has nothing to do with her. And in all of this, Wu Yunyang has ambushed the best chess piece, Hua Die. She was wholeheartedly dedicated to celebrating Simon. What the slave said was good. It's up to you whether you want to or not. This Huada has the ability to go to Tokyo to complain. So, do you dare to marry Li Ping'er before getting Huada's support? Isn't Wu Yunyang smart? It's just a few understatements that let us see through the terrifying palace. Behind her habitual stupidity, ordinarily, of Wu Yunyang's 3 reasons, only Hua Die's one is useful. But this is just a skill of speaking, using a bunch of nonsense as a foreshadowing, and finally using a trump card to win the battle. Of course, we can't help but care about this issue. Is Huada really that difficult to deal with? Hua Die's fight against Hua Zixu was also dealt with by Simon King, wasn't it? When Simon King and Li Ping'er had a jacquard relationship, Li Ping'er's tone was not very harsh. If he farts, I will teach that thief to sit and die without daring to sleep. He doesn't dare to mess with me. Why is Simon King still so afraid of spending too much money? Since ancient times, relatives have not been easy to mess with. Let's compare the newly promoted 3 relatives of the Simon family. Meng Yulu, 4th Uncle Zhang. 4th Uncle Zhang knows very little about the young family itself, and has very little ability. He has nothing to rely on except the name uncle, so Simon King doesn't take him seriously at all. Pan Jinlian, Wu Song. Although Wu Song can kill a tiger with his fists, he is simply an idiot when it comes to politics. As long as there is no direct conflict, it is still easy to deal with. Li Ping'er, Hua Die. Although Hua Die, like 4th Uncle Zhang, only received a house cash from the sale, didn't Li Ping'er still have an inheritance? Even if dissatisfaction with filial piety is not a problem for Li Ping'er's personal integrity, what if it becomes the reason for Hua Die to cause trouble? What if Hua Die accidentally learns about the huge treasures that have escaped over the wall? In general, compared with Uncle Zhang, Hua Die can put Hua Zixu in jail. Compared with Wu Song, Hua Die does not need to show off his courage, but can secretly cause harm through political means. Obviously, Hua Die has become a stumbling block that Simon Kingshen is afraid of. 3. To marry or not. The attitudes of helpers. While Simon King and Li Ping'er were entertaining back and forth, the author celebrated Count Ying's birthday. This birthday is the gathering of the 10 brothers. If they die, Hua Zixu will make up for one Bisi. And if they die, they will replace each other. As for who they are, it doesn't matter who they are, as long as they make up the number. In the free space of the banquet, Earl Ying secretly overheard the conversation between Simon King and Diane, who were in the toilet. Diane reported on the progress of today's work. The Hua family has been settled by Li Ping'er. Hua Zixu's spirit has been burned out, and Li Ping'er is waiting for Simon King to discuss the details of the wedding. You know, today is Earl Ying's birthday, but of course he understood who was the real protagonist of the party. Not only that, when the master went to the toilet, he had to care about what the master was busy with recently and why he was in a hurry to leave. Fortunately, he understood what was going on. It turns out that your fathers did a great job. This sentence can be translated as, it turns out that your master and slaves collaborated to seduce the wife of our dead brother Hua Zixu. Simon King's request is very simple. Don't publicize it. It will have a bad influence. Anyway, the money is already in my house, and I have decided on the person. As for whether you know congratulations or looking for trouble, I don't care at all. Everyone knows it's impossible to find fault with this matter. It's none of my business. However, what would you do if you were Earl Ying? Helping the leader keep secrets from others? Showing his loyalty? On the surface, you help the leader keep secrets, but in private, you gossip loudly and let other friends listen. Show that you have a close relationship with the leader and that you know everything about private matters. If this is the case, then your realm is too low. Let's see how Earl Ying does it. He went to the banquet and said this to everyone. He pulled Simon King and said, Brother, you are a man. If you have such a thing, you just hang up and don't say anything to your brothers? Is it Hua Die? There are some words that I just told us. Wait for us to tell him, and we are not afraid that he will not comply. If he dares to say no, we will form a big knot with him. I don't know if this marriage has been completed. Brother, tell us one by one. What are you doing to make friends recently? If I have an envoy to go somewhere, I am willing to go into fire and water. Brothers, I am waiting for you, but I just keep it secret. Are you very loyal and courageous, and not self-interested but dedicated to benefiting others? However, where were the brothers, Earl Ying, when Hua Zixu was arrested last time? If Hua Die was a man like Wu Song, would Earl Ying dare to get involved with him? Or, the second brother Hua has just passed away. So, what does it mean to marry the second sister-in-law with the help of the earls like fire and water? There is no doubt that Earl Ying knew that Simon King had already taken care of Hua Die, and he also knew that Simon King was just worried about living up to the truth, acting as a friend's wife. So he showed his loyalty and dispelled his master's last moral concerns. In addition to Earl Ying, Zizida and Xu Xinian also quickly understood. Since they want to celebrate marrying a sister-in-law in the future, it is better to offer a toast now while they re-happy. Soy asked the earl to bring the wine. Zishi held the pot, and Xu Zhenian brought the dishes, while the others knelt with me. I also called the two little girls to kneel down and played and sang a set of 13 tune to welcome the auspicious day. King drank 3 or 4 hours of wine. If you were Simon King, would you be happy? So we can understand why leaders like others to flatter so much. It's not because they have low IQs, but because the level of flattery is too high, and they really can't control it. At the end of this chapter, the 3 reasons mentioned by Wu Yunyang all collided, but they are no longer reasons. What Li Ping'er said was right, and Earl Ying's guess was also right. Hua Die was indeed useless and did not cause any trouble to Simon King. Of course, Hua Die and Hua Zixu are biological brothers, and Wu Die and Wu Song are also biological brothers. However, in the vast world of Jin Ping Mei, what can biological brothers do? What about sworn brothers like Simon and Yinger? In the same era when the water margin of the 3 kingdoms was produced, the Plum and the Golden Ping made a sharp satire on these social relationships, where profit was paramount, and showed perhaps a more real and thorough society and life.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.